real issues which we need to invest money on. And I think Mr. Datar is much more qualified to explain to us on what the actual needs of the city are and where we need to invest the money rather than on the coastal project.
Yeah, I totally agree with Rahul. I think what he said was absolutely correct. And I would just like to add some statements or facts in support of what he had said. It is quite clear that there are very, very, very few people who will benefit. The 10% motorists also are not, they are total motorists in Mumbai in all parts. On the western, extreme western part of Mumbai, that would be barely 3 or 4%, if at all. So the number of possible or potential beneficiaries is very small. Number one. Number two, the alternate investment let in even in transportation alone can be do a much better job in 1% of the cost. Total cost is going to be at least 15,000 crores. So instead of 15,000 crore rupees, you remove two zeros and you make it much smaller than that, maybe 150 or 200, 300 crore rupees worth of buses and put them in a bus lane. They'll carry more people in a 3 to 6 months rather than 3 to 4 years. So in an unlikely case, this doesn't seem to work. We can always go to other way. Secondly, we are also meeting at the double the cost of Metro 3, which will we have capacity of 18 lakhs, which compared to 2 lakh of coastal road. So I thought, what is it happening that we don't have any money for hospitals? We don't have any money to clean up the Mithi River and other rivers. We don't have any money for medical colleges, sanitation, drainage, and I have all the money. We don't even have footpath is such a glaring thing. We we don't have mind space to earn money from parking. Forget about spending money, which we can earn, but more than the money, the parking will need discipline. But instead of disciplining motorists, we want to give them some more nice way. Maybe a few thousand, maybe 5 or 10,000 people might benefit. Whereas in traffic wise also, there are a lot of people who will suffer, not benefit. In the sense, I would like you to see the junction design at Haji Ali. The way it has been made very complicated, there is the access and egress for every single road, Pedal Road, Warden Road, Haji Ali. I mean, what is that road? The northern road towards going to Lotus
Ali Bassett,
Cinema,
Ali
and
Bassett, Ali
Desert Road,
Bassett.
as well as Tardev Road. So all of these have been provided a special link, and that has created a very complicated weave, and that will really have very low traffic, but it will have too much of a space for too little traffic, and that has raised the cost tremendously. Because perhaps if you wanted to really have a coastal road, even motor centric, even then you could have just provided just only one lane, 2 plus 2 lanes, not 8 plus 8 lanes, and that too at each junction, two lanes. It is going to be really more civil engineering and more cement and steel and very little benefit even for motorists, let alone for buses. So I feel that we are completely wrongly focused, and especially after COVID, I mean we should be ashamed. After COVID, we are not learning anything. I think these are my initial remarks. I would like to get some more points, and I can add afterwards. I think these are all, we should not take this argument seriously. I will even tell you one metro statement. For example, Mumbai Metro 3 underground metro, I think is a good project. I'm not saying it is a bad project as such, but it has claimed that it will reduce the number of cars by 1,50,000. Now let us look at it. What has happened to Delhi in the last 20 years? The growth of cars in Delhi with a very wide, good network has been as much as 11%, same as Mumbai. So in spite of all the network of metro, there is not only no reduction but a happy increase. And one thing that can reduce the traffic congestion is only and real right on the spot is a control and regulate parking. So on that we have no time at all to earn money and to put some traffic discipline. But I think we are all apparently so believe that motorist is our audience and we must do everything to benefit motorists. But by not having parking, we are even depriving them of the subspace. So I think we are really becoming brainless people here. I think both the phases are quite useless. So I feel that there is some value, independent value for phase one and phase two, but that is of such a low consequence. If at all, there will be some benefit of the first phase. But for that, if at all you wanted to, I am totally opposed. Please don't misunderstand me. But if at all you are still have a dreamy, mad, corrupt, or whatever kind of people you are, even then you should not have more than 2+2 lanes. If at all you have to have the coastal road, it cannot be more than 2+2 lanes. Because if we invite so many empty lanes, that would attract and generate more traffic. I feel that unless motorists feel that it is not a worthwhile, today already people are feeling like that. It is not worthwhile to take your car out and go because you suffer so much of traffic jam. Many drivers are employed because to manage the traffic jam and parking. And I think with coastal road, what will happen? Because we don't begin our journey on coastal road, nor do we end our journey on coastal road. Journey begins outside coastal road and ends outside coastal road. That means whatever the traffic attraction that you have, a smooth, high speed, no congestion traffic on coastal road, that dream is shattered as soon as we exit out of coastal road or enter the coastal road at both ends or wherever the junctions are. The junctions are simply incapable of handling the new traffic if it is generated. So I feel that the all in all, for out of the for each one beneficiary, there will be 9 or 10 motorists. Forget about the other non-motorists. Even they will suffer traffic jams at the junction, more parking problems, and the rest of the city on which for which we have got no clue. So we are going to create a cancer by coastal road, and of which we can easily anticipate. It's nothing very great science. It is obvious. The way the traffic has grown during last 20 years, because there are more vehicles are relatively getting cheaper compared to your other housing, for example. In last 20 years, you look at the increase in price of houses, increase in price of cars are very little. So obviously people, those who can't buy houses, they buy car, second car, third car, and then leave it alone on the road or something like that. So all that will, so coastal road pleasure. In fact, there was one very interesting news. Because of current problems with railways and buses, railways really, the people are opting to buy, more people are opting to buy cars. That was a very significant news item, that currently the demand for cars under rupees 3 lakh second-hand cars has shot up by 200% during last 3 months. Now all these cars are available, and more people will drop their cars and go up newer models, and their second-hand cars will add the traffic in a humongous way. I feel during next first 6 to 8 months after the COVID, I hope it God forbid it subsides. But so that we will have a problem created after COVID because of the traffic jam and parking. And I think we are coastal road is going to add to it the problem, not going to solve these problems.
Also, what we need to ask ourselves is what do we really want from the cities? As a city, what kind of city do we want? I think that question is not being seriously asked. You can't look at transportation as a problem in isolation. So if we're saying that what we want is a city in which people are healthy, where we can, walk to work or walk to our schools. So it's just like a 15-minute walk around for our groceries, for everything. Um, if that is what we want, and we want to protect the beautiful areas of the city, um, then we need to think in a more holistic way that where do we need to invest? So it really comes down to land use planning in a better way so that um, most of the time, say 80% of our time, whatever our needs are satisfied locally. And we don't, so we have to start prioritizing mixed use wherever we are. We have a hangover from the 60s and the 70s of land use planning where we say this area will be residential only. Then far away somewhere, this area will be commercial only. And then far away somewhere, this area will be industrial only. So this thinking came about because earlier the separation was between industry and residential. These were the only two things which were there in the city earlier. But with the birth of service industry, commerce offices have become a significant part of a city, which was not earlier there in the 40s and the 50s. Also, industry has become much cleaner. The pollution is controlled. So you can have industry also within a city. It's possible to have it. So this whole concept, the earlier concept based on pollution, that you need to separate the industry is not valid anymore. So we need to have much more mixed use so that we walk to school, we walk to work, we walk to the hospital, we walk to the grocery, we walk to the park, and we're not tempted to take out the car. Um, and to be able to do that, footpaths are essential. Now, when we're talking about this other new road going from Versova to Kandivali, as Ashok says, it will increase the demand. The amount of traffic, it will increase because these are the kind of things which which make people take their cars out much more. So pollution levels will not come down; they will actually go up. And you know, you should put your transportation not in your best places. Now, your our coast is it's a very live, thriving, beautiful place. The coast is where so much happens in marine life, and for us to believe that because nobody owns that land, because it is a public good, that we can just fill it and that there will not be any consequences. That is a very poor form of thinking. It's a very short-sighted form of thinking that nature, by taking away space from nature like this, um, there won't be any consequence. There will be. And ultimately, it's just also about um, being holistic health overall. So it's not uh, it's a very foolish thing to actually do to build more roads anywhere, and especially on the coast. And we do it on the coast only because we don't have to worry about the land rights. We're taking away from nature, and no human being owns that land. And we think, okay, it's free, but it's not free at all.
I think this is a very valid last point that you made, Rahul. And I think we are not at all concerned this thing. And this is the only apparent logic that we can take away or steal away the land from the nature, nobody complains. And even then, the cost of this thing per kilometer at something like the south part is perhaps the world's largest, highest. It is much higher than even metro. I mean, I can't imagine what kind of, and that I think because they are provided for each junction several accesses where there is problem is there is little space. in American, old American style, which is of course not valid, but there also for a Cloverleaf junction, we need lots of space, which we don't have. And just look at it. Think of a Hajeli where you will have 4 or 5 characters. It will be absolutely super improved mess. I really feel that we are in the 21st century and not in the 20th century. Somehow we seem to have missed that 1 century time lag. So we should really absolutely out of the way to think of it. And even metro is, I would say, not a very good solution, but it is better than coastal road. Because there also we are going to have about 150,000 crore rupees that we are going to spend. So all the budget is going to be spent only on the transportation. I don't like, as a transport activist, I feel that we are spending too much on transportation, too little on health, sanitation, open spaces, and affordable housing. So I think what are we doing? Who are we meant for? Who is this budget meant for?
This brings us to another very important point of governance. See, there are now 1,500 cities in the world where the civic budget is decided by the residents, because residents know what is needed in their area. Like Ashok is saying, there is a need for primary health centers, for hospitals, for recreation. So if you ask, in a democracy, we should be asking people, and people should be deciding the budget. In India, unfortunately, we have kept the British system where there is a commissioner who is not an elected person who decides the budget. This and that person, that person and the officers are not really aware about locally what the requirements and what the needs are. Once we give, now even in the villages, in the panchayat, they have more of a say of where the money should be spent in the village. But in the cities, we have no say, zero say. So there needs to be a change where at least 50% of the budget needs to be decided by local residents. And when we do that, then citizens will control the project. Citizens will say what is important for them locally. There can be a system to prioritize that. And that will lead to a much more balanced development then. So citizens need to have a much bigger say. Only then the relevant things will happen. Not what some politicians think is good for, you know, so we can blame any government, but this coastal road started with Prithviraj Chauhan, who was in the Congress. He is the one who started it. We had recently met him, and you know what his answer was, why he wanted it? He says, oh, people from my constituency will come, and this will be a beautiful promenade, and they will enjoy it. So from Karad, people will come, and they will enjoy the promenade. So for him, it was purely a tourism project. It was nothing to do with transportation or anything. It was tourism. That in his constituency, people will say, Prithviraj made a very good thing in Bombay, and we walked on that road. So that is the kind of. So why should politicians or commissioners have so much of a say on our daily life? We are a democracy. We should decide as the people what is good, and we need to set up mechanisms. Now, England is constantly refining how they have a department for improving governance at all times. They keep on looking at how do you improve the governance, how do you improve the participation of the people, how do we do the correct thing for the people. So they have a department to improve governance. Things like that we have not even heard of over here. How to improve participation of people so that participatory decisions can happen. So those are the kind of things we actually need. Otherwise, environmentalists will always be fighting against something which is being opaquely done. We're done behind our backs. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know why we are doing. When they announce it, then all of us rally and say, hey, no, this you can't do. Yeah, Pooja, that is like a true democracy. I agree with you. Yeah, so that's my point there.
And I feel that whatever the errors we could justify pre-COVID can't be justified in post-COVID. Post-COVID has been the first answer of the nature to the human greed in terms of space, congestion, high-rise buildings, and all that mindset represents, whether metros, coastal road, high FSI buildings, congested, the kind of development patterns of BDD charge, which is luckily not taking off, or even Dharavi, international tenders, and all this kind of nonsense, which was utterly and mechanistic about it. But after COVID has given, nature has given a jhatka through COVID, and we are just not, we are simply coming carry forward after as if the COVID nothing happened. I think COVID has affected the whole world. First time the nature during last 60 years of man's greed in all the countries, COVID has been a real powerful hit by the nature to the human beings. And I thought we should think, whereas what has happened, just look at it. After COVID, there was a question of raising enough money, doing formula. But they said one project that must go on. We appeal that for the time we at least keep the work of coastal road pending, think more, and then continue. But no, one project where the work is going on very expeditiously is the coastal road. I think very tragic about. Uh, Actually, with COVID, you should definitely have given a pause and do more things like what Rahul has been saying. But we are not allowing ourselves that we need to think after COVID. I really feel that doing some other pandemic or some other natural calamity to fall, which look quite likely.
Yeah, Anjali, we can go on and on. Do you have any other
Yes.
questions? See, we need to also understand. We need to understand that a city cannot indefinitely become more and more dense. You see, as human beings, all our problems started when we settled. We think farming is a very green thing, but it's not. When we settled and started to live in a village to begin with, that is when diseases really came about. So, and then it's grown to cities, etc. So, we think we can solve public health indefinitely. But the problem is um, we need to find what is the correct density so that a city is alive, is energetic, but is not affected by pandemics and affected by health the way. Um, so, what is that number of density? And as Ashok is saying, we cannot indefinitely keep raising the FSI and keep raising the density in the cities. So, one example is that 50% of our people in Bombay live in a slum. So, more than half the population is living in a slum. Now, what is the density of a slum? The density of a slum is almost 2 lakh people per square kilometer. Okay. Now, if you compare that to average of Bombay is about 22,000. Okay. And if we say cities which we like a lot, which we respect, so supposing you take Paris or London or Singapore or many of these countries, they all hover between 6,000 to 10,000 people per square kilometer. So that is the range. Bombay is already 22, but a slum is 2 lakh. You know? And then when we say that we want to redevelop a slum using a developer, what does that developer come? He comes and he reduces everybody to one third that space, and then on two thirds of the space, he'll make new buildings, which he will sell, and then he'll subsidize the slum. So now from 2 lakh, they have gone to 6 lakh per square kilometer. Now, those densities, now I know we are transgressing completely from our transportation topic, but we have to look at things holistically, overall. Now, when you create so much density in one place, then the public infrastructure also um, has to keep up the road space, the pedestrian plazas, the recreation space, all that also has to be kept. So, someone asked the question, what's the question to density? The question to density is that um, better planning so that we are little better dispersed. Right now, we already have 22 million people living in Mumbai, and our water supply is coming from as far away as Nasik. No? So we need to see as Maharashtra as a state, which are the cities we need to focus on, and we need to allow them to grow better, and which are the cities which are too dense, and we disinventicize so that we don't give the FSI. As Ashok is saying, we don't give the parking rights, right? We don't give the FSI because we don't want the density to go up, and we increase the density. So wherever we have habitation, we should have an habitation with FSI 1. FSI 1 is enough, right? And plan. So there are at least 7 or 8 other cities, maybe 10 in Maharashtra, which have a very low density, and the FSI is also low. So we need to urban plan better over there, provide more infrastructure over there, so that people go there. Look at incentives of um, so that people, instead of moving to Bombay, move to these places, which will be much cheaper, much easier for people to afford to live there. And so, see, we need to. So the thing is, everything is connected. So it always comes back to the question: what do we really want? As Maharashtrians of Maharashtra, what does Maharashtra really want? Do we want everybody to come to Bombay only and live? Is Bombay the only solution? See, if you look at Germany and how Germany had developed, no city in Germany is more than 2 million people. So it's a very distributed network of cities that they have. So each region has developed. So they've made sure every region develops well, so that the amount of migration, etc., is much less. Migration will be there, but provide more opportunities where water is available. There is a limit to the sustainability of any region. Supposing something happens to the supply of water, 22 million people will be affected. So we need to distribute our risks also, by spreading people. It's not that you need more land or you need more farmland. There is enough land already available in the cities, but the urban planning needs to be better in the cities, and the densification needs to be there more in the other cities. So that's how you can reduce the density in Mumbai, at least, by focusing on the rest of Maharashtra.
Now, a transportation development plan, which is very
Yeah.
car centric, as you can see in the coastal road, which is require a car requires something like it for carrying 100 people. Cars require a 10 to 15 times more space than buses, or the 30, 40 times more than walking or bicycling. So I feel that when we already have such a this thing, we are providing infrastructure which is a very catering to very few people and very large money. So I think it is basically a simple bad democratic economy. That means we are, as it is, we are too many people, and instead of providing, ensuring that we have good affordable housing, free more public spaces, we are going to spend more money absolutely for the motorist. And even though you have money, ultimately, people can't have the car simply because there is no space to park, there is no space to drive. So I think with this kind of density, we have to have either public transport or sustainable transport, means walking and bicycle. So we are really completely, and transportation is going in a completely crazy way. and attract all the money. That is because visually people feel that to drive on an 8-lane highway in a high speed is the ultimate goal, and you can completely ignore. I think all the Western countries also have developed a lot of other infrastructure, not just road, and now they are all going anti-highways. So highways is so 20th century concept and not at all proposed in the 21st century. Yeah, partly, but that too also is a funny way that it is this private transport. It has to work in the rest of the city, and there it will be going to create strain. So that is why I feel that it is not even in the interest of motorists. That is what I feel very sad about it. It is not even sufficiently or intelligently selfish. It is completely brainlessness. I think we can imagine who are the possible winners or beneficiaries. So only that is the only clue that you get why such a idiotically expensive project is being conceived. I think it's a very good question because cement and steel both to produce them require a lot of energy, and I feel that the more cement and more steel we use, I think it is going to be creating a lot of problems. So I think we should. I sometimes feel that there should be ban on more cement and steel in Mumbai. Only what you can recycle. That is one way. This project requires thousands of tons of steel and cement. I really can't imagine. So all the cement which is made all over the country and poured in the small areas like Delhi and Mumbai and all that. I think this is also that steel cement centric development is not a very not only environment friendly but not even people friendly.
We should. There is actually no need for the coastal road at all. Focus on the metros, focus on footpaths, focus on the BST buses. That's the correct thing to do. There is really no need for the coastal road at all.
Primary benefit area is, I would say, the Western Express Highway, which is already so terribly congested. And I don't think that traffic on coastal will make a much difference to the Western Express Highway. In Western Express Highway, we have done a lot of studies on that. You can do exactly within 6 months and about 100 or 200 crore rupees, we can start a bus lane which will carry more people than coastal road. And that will make journey with a frequency of every 30 to 60 seconds, we will get one bus. 100 buses per hour. And they will carry more people, and that will be, you don't have to wait for the buses, when buses to come and all that. And when there's a lane reserve, the speed of the buses will be at least 50 to 70% higher. So I think this is one of the simplest and fastest solutions which can, and taking one lane out of the four lanes that are existing today in each side, that will also automatic some control on the cars. So, but it will carry more people in that lane compared to other three lanes. So nobody can say that you will not be able to carry the people. You will carry more people at a higher speed at lower cost. So answer is quite clear. I think we are the issues are so obvious that it is, I'm amazed that all the brilliant, intelligent IS officers and all the bureaucrats and the ministers who support, how can they, what logic they see in this one? Now, I would not say no metros, but a fewer metros. We are going to have 15 metros costing 1.5 crore rupees. Delhi, and we expect, just let us look at the number, what kind of jokes are going on. They are expecting 1.20 crore people to ride metros. Delhi, with the same number of people, same number of metro lines length and all that, of about 360 kilometers. And Delhi is a round city, not slim city like Mumbai, you know. So there they are having currently 47 lakh riders per day, which is much less than what the suburban trains carry, 80 lakhs in Mumbai. And on top of 80 lakhs, to have 120 lakhs means what, people are just traveling up and down, they don't have any work to do. I think this is the kind of a utterly dubious forecast for metro in Mumbai of 120 lakhs, and that is used to justify the kind of humongous investment. That's why I feel metro is good, but not at such a scale that we are building. And then is 100% every metro line will be huge loss, not just little loss. I think loss with metro will be much more than the buses. Number two, let us understand, I think they are underpriced. Today, the suburban railways cost 20 paisa per kilometer when you use second class pass, by which more than 50% rail travelers travel. And now metro will cost 3 rupees per kilometer. So you expect a lot of people to migrate from 20 paisa per kilometer to 3 rupees. How many rich people are there in Mumbai? Can we have 40, 50 lakh people who can migrate from suburban railways to metro at 20 times the price, not 20%? So I think we people ultimately they have only so much money to pay for the, and do we expect people will come far away, and metro does not have any pass system, it cannot have railway. So we should understand in Mumbai so many metros will not be working because we think that everybody potential user is a car user, but if we are going to have 50, 60 lakh car users, there should be no space. So I think we should be little balanced and sensible. What is our kind of a likely population? What is the profile of the population after, even after 5, 6 years? So I feel that we are creating a lot of duplicate, excessive network which will not be used, and then we are starving all other important sectors. I feel it's a crime, especially after learning from COVID.
Similar disaster we've seen in the monorail, right? We planned it. We thought we put the infrastructure and the riders will come, and the monorail has been a disaster. There are just no riders there.
Yeah, that is a good sample. There is a fear that many of the metro lines will not be completed. They will just be left half a high drive because the government will run out of the money. It is taking political credit. Every government is trying to do that.
Sorry, we couldn't hear the question. So, Anjali, your voice was cracking. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
Like
understand the
what
question,
space you are talking
Anjali.
about?
Hello?
Anjali, we can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible?
No.
Yes.
The question is that the claims are that it will create public space, but is that space really public, and how much public space will be created? And what will happen to the existing public spaces like Marine Drive?
You're talking about with the coastal road, in the coastal road, the public space.
Yes, yes, the coastal roads public space that is claimed to be created.
This is the kind of public space we want, that we need. This is the kind of accessibility we need to it. Then it needs to be designed in a proper way, hopefully with a competition which is open to many people. So it's done in a very transparent manner. So this is something I think now that we know that the coastal road is going to be built, and I don't think we have much of a choice in it, the next step needs to be of, how will this new public space be used, and who will decide what happens in the public space? Because now they're talking about, in one of the largest public spaces they've created, they want to create two underground parking lots.
That's
So what is the need of, where is the need, and who said there is a need for the parking lot? I mean, who told them that? Are the residents of Breach Candy, where they're building those two parking lots, are the residents saying that they need it? So where is this coming from? In Worli, they're reclaiming so much land and they're saying they're going to put a bus depot. Who said that that land is needed for a bus depot? Which study has said it? Which residents have said it? So your questions are very valid. Citizens need to be asked, and citizens need to think very carefully what is needed. The government needs to listen to the citizens and prioritize what the citizens want and what is needed over there, not some dream that they may have. It needs to be done in a very public way, in a transparent, open way, the decisions.
Rahul, there is also similar 1,500 car parking lot proposed in Worli also. So
Right.
where nobody is going to park car and walk some 1 or 2 kilometers further. So that is quite crazy, absolutely. And I think we need more open space near where people live inside the city. So that we are completely consuming by having a large multi-story, 40-story buildings with no gap, so no sunlight can enter in less than top floor. So all the bottom floors are completely devoid of air and sunlight. I think that has been Mr. Shirish Patel has done a very good study that with all the BDD redevelopment project, they are so close to each other and multi-story building. And secondly, I would like to ask, there are more than 1.5 lakh flats are empty. Why should such anybody, suppose who are people who can afford such flats, why would anybody like to go to such places? I mean, if I can afford it, I will certainly not like to go in this horrible place where you are going to offer a selling flat. So there is no sense of marketing also. Who will go there? Why should anybody go there? And because this is a dream, they are supposed to be making profit. It is one of the biggest joke I have come across. That 10,000 crore rupees is worth profit that government is supposed to make at BD development by giving everybody 500 square feet uh, instead of 189 square feet space that they have. By selling, you will be taking complete cost of the rehabilitation as well as for new building and make profit of 10,000 crore rupees for government. I think they will make a loss more than 10,000 crore if at all they complete the project. I am doubtful that project can be completed at all. So there are lots of completely fake projects that are being topped up. Nobody is allowed to evaluate.
Okay, hi, this is Pooja. When this particular state government came in, and from the RA context, I'm talking, so they did make claims of being environmentally conscious and all. And with every day, we are coming across, new quote unquote developmental news, like the Warsaw Vasai link road is the new addition also that we are coming across. So uh, you know how as Rahul sir was talking about participatory methods, but as citizens, I don't know, I am sure this is one of the most common questions ki bhai kya kar sakte hain log, it's like that. But how do we stop the buck, and where does it stop? Sir, you are on mute.
I think participatory democracy is something that citizens need to insist upon and ask for. So each time we have a conversation with the government, or even when we vote, this is something that needs to come up. Even asking the representatives, is this something that you support? Is this something? Because there's a lot of reforms that have to happen to the laws for participatory democracy to happen in our country, because everything is constrained by laws. So till we don't insist, till enough people are not aware that this the present method will always lead to the outcomes that we are seeing, because the laws are such that and the process is such that it will always lead to the kind of outcomes we are seeing unless we change the process. So we have to really educate people that the process needs to change, and only when the process will change will the outcomes change. It's like a factory, right? A factory, whatever you put in, based on that machinery, only certain things will come out. You have to change the system for the output to actually change. So when we talk of reforms, these are the kind of reforms our country really needs. And so it will first come about by enough people talking about it, being aware of it, demanding it as a right, that we have a right to of what happens around us. We, for our lives, for the quality of air, for the open spaces we need, for everything we need, that this is our right to demand this. So forming community groups, is the first step which will lead to it. And I guess discussions like this, which raise the thing that the real source of the problem lies in getting a democracy which is functioning. Anjali, we can't hear you.
Hello, may I ask a question? This is Ankur here. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Hello, sir. You spoke
Sure,
about
sure, sure. Go ahead.
monorail. So the monorail cost per kilometer is quite less, much lesser than a metro. And I've been in the project and spoken to some of the MMRDA people, the engineers, and what problem they face is since it was a direct import kind of from SCOMI, Malaysia, so they find it difficult to maintain and run the system because it's an imported thing. And they now when I also so they are looking at India centric solutions, but it's not very easy because you don't find like in a metro we have a make in India program. We don't have a monorail make in India program, so sourcing parts and all that is a problem. Now when I also told them that you want ridership, you need to connect to the railway stations and the metro stations. So because you have not connect, I mean, it goes all the way to Parel, but then if you connect it to Ghatkopar, then which they say it's a problem because of several other projects that are coming up in Ghatkopar, which was the SCLR project which came up, and the other project now, which is the bridge, the entire bridge project which is coming up in Ghatkopar side. So
No, so
unless
that's
they do that,
exactly
that's not going to
no,
help.
no. So that's exactly what Ashok is saying. That you need to have an integrated transportation thinking. You cannot do these things in isolation. You need to decide first what are your goals, what do you want to achieve, and then look at the most viable and economical option to solve the problem. If you say, I want a metro, I want a monorail, or I want a coastal road, and then try to thrust that as a solution, that is not the way to plan. So the
Right, right,
viability has to be looked at first. You have to first define what do you really want. We don't define what we want in terms of transportation. What we need very badly is a transportation authority which looks at transportation as a whole, from footpaths to buses to local rail, um, our highways, everything connected. So we need some a body which is going to look at transportation as a whole. We don't have that body. We don't have anybody thinking of it as a whole. We don't think in terms of people, that how will X person get from their home, point A, to their work or to their school, point B. We think of projects, you know. So that is not the way to solve to to approach the problem even.
right.
I'll
So
tell
It'll
you,
all
okay,
yeah, sure.
there was a project feasibility report I had gone through detail for the coastal road that was burned by Ernst and Young at a cost of some 6 or 7 crore rupees. But in that entire project of some 250 pages, there is not a single word about metro rail. Now it is parallel to metro rail, but there is not even a word, as if they don't exist. This is the kind of a lack of course they know, but I think when they think of that project, then they don't want to bother about other projects, because otherwise that project will fail by itself. There is no money in making even feasibility study. If you take even an 18 lakh ridership of metro, that is also exaggerated, but that's a different point. The point is that metro ridership, what they projected itself is just 2 lakh. So how do you expect a parallel line offering 18 lakh rupees in the air conditioned high speed swanky, glamorous project to not to be taken into consideration while designing coastal road? I mean, I'll just give an example of how complete. I was a member of the Mumbai Transport Authority, and it was such a pathetic thing. A lot of people used to come, and they could not do one single project for last 6 or 7 years. That is one mobility card, like Oyster card in London. They are not able to do that. I mean, just think of it. That I don't think they have done anything worthwhile. There is nothing. MMRDA seems to be contractor for Metro Railways. Corporation is a contractor for Coastal Road. What is this going on? This project-oriented thing is a dangerous absolutely.
Anjali, we can't hear you. Can't hear you, Anjali.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one question from Pooja. She's asking, do you think only local trains and best buses, if managed in decent size and efficiently, can be enough for Mumbai?
I think it's a very good question, and I feel that they can manage if you organize well. And you might have 2, 3 metros also. I'm not saying that there should be no metros. Please don't misunderstand me like that. I'm only saying that we should not just metro as a solution for any kind of problem. Now Nagpur has a metro. It runs one train every 2 hours, and that is occupied by 200 people. I think the bus is obviously a simpler solution to that. And this kind of thing, what I'm opposing. And when you can run a BRTS, which is possible in Mumbai, not possible again everywhere because the geography and pattern of working. So actually, we run one pilot bus lane in BKC, and that got a spectacular response. I think it was one of the highest in the world. running 100 buses per hour. It ran for 4 months, and due to some, because there has to be construction of metro, that was abandoned. I said, why do you need metro when it's performing more people per hour than metro? So but they say the construction of metro has to start, so this was abandoned. So I'm just giving an example. So in Mumbai, we should look at it, what is the right solution, the right area, geographic and demographic. So I'm not very adamant about only one kind of solution. There's no such thing. We should look at it multiple solutions. And I definitely feel like, for example, and there are new developments like work from home to web. Like the very fact that we are all meeting without traveling, just think of it. How many meetings taking place? Which I would find it very difficult to go from 10 different parts. This is also, I would say, using technology for democratic purposes. So these are also developments that are going to take place. And we should add a little more thinking to see that this is become on the right path. So I feel that problem A, as Rahul rightly said, we should reduce population may not increase, number one. We should have more self-contained, self-sustained centers, in Mumbai also. There should be 4 or 5 parts of Mumbai which are anyway properly. They are all linked to South Mumbai. I don't think we need to do that. We don't have to understand minimum
Okay, Anjali, I need to leave now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may be permitted, please. Yeah, thank you, Ashok. It was wonderful again.
Yes, sir. We are. Yeah.
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 Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you so much for giving us so much information and not knowing so many things. And with our platform, we try to create awareness among the public.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ashok.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ashok.
Yes,
Bye.
very good insights.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Before ending this session, I would like to ask our audience if they have anything to ask Ashok, sir. So I hope all the questions of the public have been answered by you, sir. And it was a very great initiative, very great platform for us to know about so many things. And with this, what and all you have said, we have noted down, and we will try to get awareness among the public through our platform, sir. Thank you for giving your precious time, sir.
Thank you for organizing a good meeting. Thank you.
And so I would also like to thank our audience for joining us today. It was great to hear from you all. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you.